Hey, what's up? This is Clayton Olson, and in this video, I'm going to talk about the 5 secrets of self-mastery in relationship. Now, these are discoveries that I've had along my journey that have come from coaches. They've come from 10 years of working with clients. They've come from books and workshops, and they really stand out as pillars, orienting principles that I've adopted in myself as well as invited my clients to adopt that I think allows relationships to work. Now, relationship is a place where one can experience the lowest lows of life, from devastating breakups and divorces and lost love, unrequited love, all the way to the highest highs of falling in love with somebody, building a life together, sharing life, growing in ways that you couldn't while you're single. And so I really see relationship as a massive crucible for one's transformation and growth. And it is an invitation that I offer my clients as well as you who's watching this video to embark on and to adopt these principles so that you can begin to have a more graceful and hopefully transformative time in relationship. So if this is your first time on my channel, my name is Clayton Olson and I release content on relationships, personal development, transformation on a regular basis. And if you like this video and found it interesting, like, comment, subscribe below. So let's dive into the first one. The first secret to relationship being a path to self-mastery is to begin to see relationship as a path and not a destination. Many people that I work with, and including points of my journey, I've seen relationship as a finite game, one where there's a very particular destination in mind that I'm trying to get to, whether it's creating an attraction with somebody else, or going on a certain amount of dates, or perhaps getting into bed with them or getting into relationship with them. And I know a lot of people relate the same way. We look at these certain mile markers in the relationships with a real sense of significance that can often rob us of the path that we're actually walking. And so it can rob us of the enjoyment of the path that we're actually walking. So one question I would invite you to begin to consider wherever you are in your relationship journey is the question, who am I becoming in this? How is this relationship, how is this circumstance inviting me into a version of myself that was previously inaccessible? Now, what that question does is it begins to invite your brain, your mind, to look for the traits that you're developing in your character and the things that ultimately can't be taken away from you regardless of what happens with the relationship, whether it stays or leaves. And so when we start to look at relationship as a path rather than destination, when we start to look at it as an infinite game where there are certain internal qualities that we're developing, there are ways where our awareness is expanding and who are we becoming is more expansive, even in the face of tragedy. We actually can neutralize so much of the anxiety that comes with getting into a relationship with another person when we have no control over the outcome. We might be able to influence it, but we have no control over that. And that can often leave people feeling very anxious. So this orienting principle, see it as a path to becoming a better you, a path to spiritual development, character development, rather than a destination, is a potent medicine along the journey. The second principle, the second secret to relationship as a path to self-mastery is to realize that you are always in relationship. There are no exceptions, even when you're single. I was once talking to a client and they were a successful individual who's accomplished a decent amount in life. They've got money, they feel like they're on purpose. Relationship with an intimate other has occurred to them as the final missing piece in their journey. And if they were just to get that to click into place, they could finally be satisfied. Now, the invitation that I offer them, the question that I asked them was, how are you in relationship with not being in relationship? And they thought about it for a moment. And maybe you can think about that right now too if you're single. How are you in relationship with not being in relationship? And most people, when they really start to investigate it, they find that they're actually in relationship with not being in relationship from a place of anxiety, from a place of fear, from a place of longing, from a place of maybe even a little bit of bitterness or feeling like life's not fair, or that they're waiting and they're impatient and they're kind of tolerating being single. And see, the first step to beginning to really practice relationship mastery and self-mastery is, how can we be in a healthy relationship right now with not being in relationship? Because Here's the fool's errand that happens. If we are practicing in ourselves a way of being where we are in touch consistently with this thing that's lacking in our life, we are actually practicing the habit of cultivating lack, cultivating a state of being of lack. And what often happens then is when we get into relationship, we find that the relationship is not nearly as fulfilling as we thought it would be. We've gotten so good at seeing what's missing, and we've created such a fantasy about what this relationship is going to do for us that when we finally get into it, no mere mortal can actually compare to the fantasy. And so we might find ourselves breaking up with somebody prematurely, or on the contrary, we might end up getting into the relationship and grasping onto it so tightly because we don't want it to leave that we end up creating a self-fulfilling prophecy and the person takes off. So how can you right now begin to see that you're actually practicing relationship by how you orient and where you come from within yourself to being single, to not having a relationship? Can you actually practice being in secure attachment with not being in relationship so that when you get into relationship, you've got this foundation that you've built where relationship really truly becomes the icing on the cake. Be okay being single, and relationship just should be icing on the cake, not everything. And that can be easier said than done. So hopefully this tip of beginning to examine your relationship with not being in relationship can begin to move something and help you see that you're in the perfect training ground right now for the next thing to come into your life and for you to be able to cultivate it from a place of secure and trusting foundation. Relationship is a mirror and a continual practice of self-love. Now, what I found in my own life is that whenever I am triggered by my partner, whenever I am judging her for something that I think that she should be doing or some way that I think she should be changing, if I am not coming from the principle that relationship is a mirror, what I might find is that I end up, again, leaving relationship prematurely, to not taking this as an opportunity to work on myself, and also not taking any responsibility for the fact that I am creating a story about what I think is going on over there. Now, granted, there might be some external actions, some things that they're doing that I don't agree with. That's one thing. There might be a way that they're living their life where I'm judging their character in some ways. Now, if I'm projecting, which most of the time I am, if I feel a charge around it, and I'm trying to change them versus actually look at myself, the relationship can become controlling, it can become fragile, it can become brittle, and ultimately lead to its demise. But when I stand in the perspective that every relationship I get into is a mirror for me to look at myself and examine the places where maybe I'm not showing up in fullness, where I'm not showing up resourceful, where I'm showing up secretly in my life as the very thing that I'm judging, I can start to use the relationship as this really powerful fulcrum to begin to do the internal work necessary to become the best version of myself, reduce that charge, take back the projection that I'm putting on over there, and then make a clear and sober decision around whether I want to stay in the relationship or not. And I got to tell you, 9 times out of 10, when I'm triggered by something that my partner's doing, I'm projecting. I'm coming into contact with something over there that they're doing that is an unhealed aspect of myself that I have not been able to see and not been able to work on because I didn't see it earlier or I wasn't in a relationship. So when we see relationship as a mirror, we can use the relationship as a dojo to truly hone our self-awareness and practicing loving more deeply the things inside of ourselves that we're secretly judging. The fourth principle to creating self-mastery inside a relationship is the perspective that when you nourish yourself, you nourish your relationships. A number of clients that I work with have come to me, and the way that they have seen relationship, and one of the ways they keep relationship unconsciously and even consciously at bay, is by believing that they're going to have to sacrifice themselves or compromise themselves to be in a loving, devoted partnership. And they're going to have to do that in ways that are ultimately going to take away aliveness. It's going to take away a tremendous amount of freedom and leave them feeling like half a person. And so what happens is their heart longs for a deep relationship, but they've got strategies and beliefs set up in their mind that keep it at bay, that then occur as self-sabotage when they start to meet someone they really like. They have a belief that if I was to take care of myself in the relationship first, if I was to nourish myself, that somehow my partner wouldn't be able to handle it, or that I would be judged as selfish. And because I can't identify with being selfish, I'm just going to go ahead and reject that altogether, and maybe I'll be self-sacrificing, and I'll create a hotbed of resentment and hope that they can mind read that my needs need to get met, rather than me taking care of myself. And so it really convolutes relationship. It convolutes the dynamic when we think that we have to nourish the other person before we nourish ourselves, or that we have to allow the other person to nourish us rather than us nourishing ourselves. And on the surface, that seems pretty obvious, right? Like, of course, it's your responsibility to take care of you. But something happens in this kind of romantic paradigm that we've been brought up in, where when we get in a relationship, we stop taking care of ourselves. We stop prioritizing ourselves because we think that that's unloving. When we can slow down and really see that what's actually our greatest contribution to the relationship is who we are being versus what we're doing or saying, we can start to straighten this out and actually see that when we do give to ourselves, when we work on our well-being, when we come into greater integrity with ourselves, when we fill our cup up first and allow the top to overflow into the cups around us, that's actually what is magnetic. That is actually what creates sustainable love. Now, you probably heard the analogy too, if we're in an airplane and the gas masks drop down, we don't put the gas mask on somebody else first, we put it on ourselves first. And so I think that's a great metaphor just to remind yourself in relationship, take care of yourself. And when you do that, you're going to be able to interact with your partner from a resourceful, flexible place where you're not going to get triggered nearly as easily. And you're going to be able to offer your, again, greatest contribution into the connection. And then finally, the fifth way that we can use relationship as a path to self-mastery is through commitment. And this has been probably one of the hardest aspects for me in my life growing up. In my younger years, I did not want to commit to any type of relationship because I felt like relationship and commitment was a trap. And I could probably say that I was a commitment phobe at that point. But over the years, what I didn't actually realize is that commitment is one of the most powerful tools to transform oneself. You know, I got into martial arts at a young age and committed to that process, and that changed me permanently. I got into other things that I really love doing, different hobbies and passions and education, and that commitment completely changed who I am. But for whatever reason, that didn't feel like it carried over to relationship. I thought that if I committed to relationship, that I would be committing to a life that is less than the one that I was living. But over the last several years, what I've realized, going full in with my partner and committing, is that what it does is it actually stops this process, this strategy that many of us have of thinking that in order to feel better, in order to feel well-being or feel free, that we need to change the external circumstance. Right? If I want to feel free, I got to get out of the relationship. If I want to feel like my best self, I got to get out of the relationship. If I want to feel understood and my partner's not understanding me, then maybe I need to find someone who's more compatible. That can be a real trap where we're constantly changing the outside world because we're not actually committed. And so when we commit, what this provides, again, and I love this word, is it provides a fulcrum for us to go inside of ourselves and to maneuver and find the flexibility and find the resourcefulness to find the proper stance and clean up our own crap on our side of the fence so that we can actually be in the relationship regardless of how we're feeling at times, right? Sometimes you might feel doubt. Sometimes you might feel angry. Sometimes you might feel unseen or unloved. And now, if you're committed, you get to play with, okay, can I fall deeper in love with the process of awakening in a relationship? Can I fall in love with the grittiness of what it means to be committed to another imperfect human being that is not going to give me everything that I need at all times? But how can I actually love myself in the process of that? How can I take care of me? How can I be in relationship with all these other principles we talked about and stay committed? simultaneously so that I can really juice this connection and ultimately dig deep within myself and find resources within myself that otherwise I would not have been able to access had I not been committed. So when we commit, we are committing to transformation. That's what we're committing to. We're not committing to being trapped. We're committing to saying, I am willing to allow this circumstance, this situation. I'm committing to allowing this relationship to transform me in ways that I could not on my own. I hope you found this content helpful today, and if you did, please give it a thumbs up and a like. And if you're looking for one-on-one professional support to help you through your particular relationship or life challenge, and you'd love a thinking partner by your side to help point out the blind spots so that you can move to the next level, the next version of you, feel free to email me. My contact info is in the description below.